united in diversity. We are very heterogeneous in our opinion.
If we do not renew our partnerships with the rest of the world, Europe will not be relevant.
We can make it if we are together as Europeans.
Do you genuinely believe that countries will manage to reach these very ambitious targets?
Good afternoon. My name is Mathieu Paulet and I'm a tech reporter at Politico, and you're watching Politico Live, the live extensions of Politico's unbiased journalism. We find ourselves at a very pivotal moment for Europe's future. New leadership is emerging with a new team of commissioners, or should I say commissioners designate for now, but their mission letters already are packed with goals and challenges that will shape the course of their work. Meanwhile, you've probably heard about some Draghi reports, so hundreds of pages of insight from none other than Mario Draghi, filled with key recommendations on how to sharpen European competitiveness. And guess what ranks high in all of those documents? Telecoms. It's making a strong comeback as a policy priority, perhaps because we now realize that telecoms is much more than just infrastructure for communication. It's the backbone for innovation and one of the most critical pillars, perhaps, of Europe's prosperity. As we move toward an increasingly digital economy, strong telecom networks are not just a nice-have anymore. They're absolutely essential, critical. They enable the kind of technological breakthrough that we need to keep Europe competitive in fields like AI, 5G, and soon 6G, green tech, and beyond. Of course, Mario Draghi's report is just the latest in a series of important contributions shaping Europe's future. Before Draghi, we had key proposals from Enrico Letta and policy options from the European Commission's very own white paper. Together, these documents form a rich tapestry of ideas, providing a clear roadmap for Europeans' path ahead. Now, standing at the start of a new legislative cycle, we have plenty to dive into today with our panelists. But first, you may be familiar with that already. If you are a keen attendee of Politico's events, we have some housekeeping remarks. We would like to thank our sponsor, Connect Europe, for making this event possible, and a warm thank you for you in the audience joining us either in person or online. And we would like, of course, to make this event as interactive as possible. So you can tweet about it at Live Politico and also ask questions through Slido using the hashtag DigitalFutureEU. But please put your name next to your question for the sake of transparency. You can also already share your thoughts and answer the following poll. What is the most critical factor for improving investment in connectivity in Europe? And we'll have a look at the result at the end of a panel. But before we get started for good, we'll now hear some opening remarks from our partner, Alessandro Gropelli, Director General Designate, just like the commissioners, at Connect Europe. Please, Alessandro.
Dear guests, dear distinguished panelists, I'm proud to bring you the new voice of Connect Europe. We represent the leading providers of connectivity networks and services in Europe. Connect Europe is not only a name, but also our purpose. We want to empower the digital future by connecting people, businesses, and communities. We take the relay from Etno, building on 32 years of representing telecom operators in Europe since 1992, the year of the Maastricht Treaty. Personally, I take the relay from Lise Fur, and I'm grateful to her and to our members for that. There are some important questions on the table. Mathieu mentioned them. How do we give opportunity to our citizens? How do we reinforce our competitiveness? And what does digital have to do with all of this? This is about the SMEs getting on the cloud and increasing their productivity. It's about the next Spotify, the next Zalando scaling up and claiming their share of the consumer internet. But it was also about the doctors who are making better diagnosis with AI, or maybe a car manufacturer running an electric vehicle production line on a 5G campus network. It all starts from the networks that telecom operators are building day in, day out. If the opportunity is all about digitalization and innovation, the work behind of it, believe me, is a lot of brick and mortar. Advanced connectivity starts from the team of workers who dig the street to bring you fiber. it starts from those who build the phone masts. And it also requires running data centers and the software that makes 5G gigabit networks what they are. A smart platform to build competitiveness for citizen and socio-economic opportunity. Today, we unveiled a policy agenda to bring that connectivity and that opportunity to all of Europe's 450 million citizens. You can find it on connecteurope.org, but if you are in the room, also on your chair. So what is this Europe's digital choice about in our view? The intuition is simple, and it all starts from the user. Ipsos went out to 27 member states for us and asked people what they thought of connectivity services. And 85% of the people they surveyed thinks that it's a basic need and something that everyone needs to have access to. So the first digital choice that Europe has is to give them gigabit networks and do it now. If the intuition is simple, as always happens in life, the implementation is not as straightforward and easy. As we know from the European Commission, we are still about 200 billion euros short of that objective. And our estimates say that if we do nothing at the end of this decade, we will have around 45 million Europeans who are left out of this connectivity opportunity. This is not without a consequence. Mario Draghi, was mentioned before, wrote it in his recent report in pretty clear terms. The key driver of the rising productivity gap between the EU and the US, he said, has been digital technology. In this context, he went on to argue that competition for computing power and lack of investment in connectivity could soon translate into digital bottlenecks. This is why one of his main recommendations, and I'm quoting, is to reform the EU's regulation and competition stance to complete the digital market for telecommunications. We agree with him, and we have some ideas of our own on what the policy priorities should be if and when we move to this reform. First, as a policy priority, we think it would be important to stimulate an unprecedented investment in networks that reach every European. We have ideas on how to do it by fundamentally reviewing the EU regulatory framework and moving away from the current ex-ante regulation, by reforming spectrum policy, and with a strong industrial policy for secure and sustainable connectivity. Second, we think we should make a full use of the single market. And we believe you can do this by achieving an adequate scale in the telecom sector, but also by harmonizing rules so that we can offer services to all European citizens across national borders. Third and last, let's establish a fresh license to innovate in Europe in the telecom sector, which you can do by streamlining sector-specific regulation, removing rules that might have become unnecessary, and ensuring fairness in the internet and digital ecosystems. These are our own views, but the decisions, of course, will be with the new political leadership. There are important documents that Mathieu mentioned, and the Commission white paper on the future of connectivity and the responses to the consultation. Let us report, Mario Draghi. We also believe that there is a clear pro-innovation and pro-investment spirit in the political guidelines of Ursula von der Leyen from July, and we saw that spirit reflected also in the mission letters to Executive Vice Presidents Rivera and Virkkunen. We have high hopes that 2025 will be the year of connectivity, and we think that if it is the year of connectivity, we have better chances that it will be also the year of competitiveness. Thanks a lot, and looking forward to the rest.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. Let's get right into it. Please welcome on stage. So Roberto Viola, the Director General of DG Connect, please join me on stage. And Juan Montero Rodil, the Chief Public Policy Competition and Regulatory Officer at Telefónica. Thank you so much for joining. Please, Roberto. It doesn't matter. I don't mind. I would have been happy to sit right next to you. Also online, we're very lucky to have one MEP joining us, MEP Svetlana Penkova from SD. Can you hear us well, Svetlana?
I can, and I can see you. I hope it's the
Perfect.
same for you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. We were supposed to have Katalin Molnar, the Deputy Permanent Representative at the Hungarian Permanent Representation to the EU, but she had some last-minute clashing obligation. And we also were supposed to have Pilar del Castillo, the Spanish lawmaker from EPP, online, but we're having difficulty to reach her, so I don't think we'll hear from her today. But we have still three very great panelists. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's been very hectic in Brussels these days, so thank you so much for stopping by. Roberto, a year and a half ago, you and I, on a different panel, we had a similar conversation already. That was back when the European Commission launched this exploratory consultation. What has changed since then?
Well, first of all, many thanks to have invited me. Thank you to you. Thank you. It's very strange to say connect Europe.
Yeah, I know. It'll take some time.
We will
we'll
send the bill for royalties. Look, let me start what is changed last week. Quite something, just in a week. We are extremely excited and happy to work with the EVP designate Virkkunen. Extremely excited and happy to allow her to implement the mission letter, which takes really to the next level the issue about Europe being competitive in deep tech in the full sense, and also brings together two elements which are quintessential. I mean, being a technology superpower, doing it for the citizens in a democratic ecosystem, and also secure. So those elements are together in the mission of the EVP designate, and we are extremely excited to help. Also the fact that for the first time ever, digital and technology got promoted at the level of EVP, also it's a clear signal of eventually the fact that also in this town now we speak technology, which is really a very good signal, and we thank very much, and we follow the leadership of our president on this. So this was a long detour to arrive to your answer, to answer your question. I think we have had in sequence, I mean, first the white paper, then the report of Mr. Letta, then the report of Draghi. And I think, frankly, there's a bit of a fusion in the three, which is relatively consistent in saying what is rather obvious. I mean, Europe is not doing well when it comes to the fusion of different elements. Maybe individually, you could say consumers are well off when it comes to our telecom ecosystem. We have here and there, I mean, excellencies. When you take the full picture is not good, I mean, overall. And this is a consistent message of the three. Also to say, look, I mean, the past is the past, let's turn page. A modern continent needs computing, needs data, needs connectivity, what we call the 3 Cs. And this, it's very, very important to everything we do in our economy, in our society. Being it building cars, which is very important for our economy, or delivering services, or, I mean, discovering new drugs. So a modern society rests in the intersection of these three elements. And that's where then everybody is called to its responsibility, policymakers, I mean, to find the right policies, and sometimes also the money, and companies to change and innovate. Now, telecom sectors has been in many turmoils, in many changes, and unfortunately, it's a little bit like the rest of Europe, did not understand fully what was going on in the internet. I always remember when I said the internet protocol, that reveals my age, by the way, is coming. Wow, we do serious things here. I mean, we don't care about the internet. And then, I mean, the idea of sending free messages. Wow, the revenues of SMS are so important. So, I mean, many things passed in front of the telecom world and were not really. So maybe now this is the right time. I hear a lot of good propositions that this industry becomes an integrated, which is already transforming a lot, but also takes this very, very seriously. And of course, to take it seriously, the argument would be we need, to be more sustainable. And that's where it becomes intricate. So I would say, just to close the first round of answers, a lot has happened. I think we have a consistent picture in terms of the doctor telling us what is the problem. Mm-hmm. And now it comes the moment that we have to start working. And as every cure, there are also side effects that we need to contain.
Yeah, we're going to use that metaphor a lot because we can use that a lot. Thank you so much, Svetlina. Have you had the time to go through the 300, 400 pages of Mario Draghi's report? I'm not going to ask you like tricky questions on it, I swear. But what's your main takeaway out of it?
So, of course, this was one of the most discussed topics probably for the last 2 weeks. I think two of the key elements that Mr. Draghi is proposing in his report, the two key words are competitiveness and infrastructure. And somehow, in all the topics he touches upon in the report, like all the sectors that more or less it targets, he's speaking about those two elements. So it's very difficult to say something that hasn't already been presented by Alessandro or Roberto in their opening remarks. But I will just touch upon on the competitiveness. So when we speak about the competitiveness, it was already mentioned by Alessandro that we need to have the full use of the single market. And that's the only way to have a stronger and more competitive EU. But this also means we need to pay more attention and to have stronger focus on the so-called shared responsibility when we speak about those things. So Roberto was quite explicit when he touched upon some of the funding mechanisms, what we have done so far. He did explain the connection between the regulation and the role the industry must have. But together with the EU support in terms of regulation and funding, we really need the private sector to play a crucial role here in terms of investments, because the public-private partnership is the only way, especially when we speak about innovation, about connectivity. That's the only way to achieve proper competitiveness. And Mr. Draghi actually puts a strong emphasis also on that partnership in many sectors, including the digital transformation, the technology. And I will touch upon the second point I've mentioned, infrastructure. That's going to be key. We're speaking a lot about infrastructure and connectivity when we speak about energy, but it has the same application when we speak about digital transformation, about tech, because here, this is I guess it's the elephant in the room when we speak about the infrastructure and who is responsible for the investment in that infrastructure. And again, I'm gonna conclude with that it is a shared responsibility. So it should be the proper regulatory framework, should be the member states that provide the incentives for the public and private partnerships, but it should also be all the stakeholders in the tech and digital industry. They have to pay their proper share in the infrastructure that we're all using. That's the only way that we can guarantee the competitive market and last but not least, the competitive prices for our consumers.
Thank you. Juan, Draghi's recommendation, I think I'm not wrong in saying that they were very well received by the telecom industry, at least some part of it. What do you make of it? Because I know that some of your priorities made it to the Draghi report. So do you think does it send a good signal for you?
Hello, Matteo.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here in this very nice room, in this very nice venue, and also far from here through the internet. Well, they definitely mean continuing on a path, and this path started with the white paper. The white paper identified a need that is not covered in the current trend of European digital evolution happening. And digital means both services, digital services, and infrastructure and connectivity. So what did we find in the Draghi report? We found something that it should be all obvious, but it was not obvious. And this is, when you see those charts Draghi has included in the report about the increase in economic growth in different regions in the world. What is the growth of GDP in Europe compared to particularly the US, but other countries in the world? It shows how weak our economic future is at its current status. So if we see we have a problem this size, it immediately has to happen. What needs to be changed in order to arrive at a different place to the one we are now driving to? And these are the recommendations that are in the Draghi report. We very much share. I think this is a macroeconomic approach, and in other parts a financial approach. It's not something specific that Draghi has taken from a hiding place. And to be honest, we are even happier when we read the President of the European Commission mission letters addressed to Madame Rivera and Madame Virkkunen, because there is such a critical change. When you read something that it's an extremely high-level memorandum, and this could apply to both Professor Letta or Draghi, it's different than when you read a policy program, as we have read in the mission letters. This is a program addressed to the European Commission that has the legislative initiative and that has to enforce this program. And there is such a consistency between these two memorandums and the mission letters. And this is the discussion we've been having for 3 years. So you say, are you comfortable? Well, we think we are, I don't know if excited is the word, but we are ready to be supportive, ready to work to meet the challenge that is in front of us, and that we are too late. So this momentum has to be taken, and we have all to drive very fast to reach the place.
If we speak about some specific recommendation, one of the concerns you've often raised, and you as in the industry, the telecom industry, is about scale or lack thereof, and a competition framework that's stopping you from growing and delivering the investment that are needed for innovation. Do you think your concern have been heard by Mario Draghi in his report? Did he get it? Did he get it? Yeah. Did he get everything right on this? That's a big question. We don't have like.
Definitely, yes. This is not a question of Mario Draghi listening to us. This is economic science. So
some people, would probably disagree with you here, saying that actually there is no. We can talk about it, but some people in academia, some competition regulators and enforcers are saying that no, actually scale has nothing to do with.
I've read them. I need them to offer a different solution to the problem. I think we're at a time when you cannot say this is not the right solution, but I have no other solution different to the one we are currently in. Because if that is the situation, where we are today is a place where we will never reach those targets that were settled for the year 2030. And I think this is a good moment to refer to the digital targets 2030. These targets were settled by the European Commission in 2021. I think we can say this was a really high-level exercise to be done. And these targets are 12 targets for digitalization, not for connectivity. Only 3 of them refer to connectivity. And that is the place where I think Mario Draghi sees if the European Union is not in that place in the year 2030, we will not be world-class digital region. We will be 2nd or 3rd division in the world. In economic terms, and economic terms mean social welfare. This is not about the telecom industry or other industry. This is about the wealth of European citizens, being citizens both, consumers and companies.
Roberto, the white paper, correct me if I'm wrong, but was quite shy or cautious about in-market consolidation at the time. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, this is a very nice location, yeah. But to get there are only 2 elevators, and you have seen what kind of queue it created. So when you look at from the perspective of consumers, choice must be there, and this is something that in the United States market is there when a consumer in a given location would like to choose from competing offers. There are 3, sometimes 4 competing offers. So this is the normal way in a kind of Western economy it should normally work. But there, then, the offers are the same from the same operator. Mm-hmm. And so this is the big difference between what is the situation in Europe and what is this. This is not, let's say, the micro situation seen from the consumer point of view. It's the macro situation seen from the scale of the US continent or the European continent. So, and it's very difficult to think that we want to go to a situation where there's only one operator. I mean, so there would be a step 50 years back into, let's say, the past, that probably, I mean, there's been someone also winning a Nobel Prize, would create a decrease of the consumer welfare, as Mr. Tirol, which contributed to the Draghi report, said very, very clearly. So we need to have competitive markets. We need that the market size is a bit decided by market forces. And there, I think that the meaning of the White Book, the meaning of, the signaling that is arriving to industries, that you make the deals, you decide, what is the right size. Of course, we wish to see more European consolidation, if possible, if the conditions are right for you as market players, and then we will examine the deals.
But do we need to relax merger rules already, or do we need to see the market as this EU-wide market, as Draghi suggests?
Look, we need to take away things which are against the internal market, and they are also, frankly, bureaucracy, red tape. This is not about the small companies or the big companies, because this is harming everyone. To have a fragmented assignment of spectrum is something that costs money to everyone in the sector. And it's something that should not be there. There's no reason why there should not be a much more harmonious policy on spectrum. And these the three, again, Draghi report, Letta report, and the White Book are very clear about this. So I don't understand the argument of some member states saying, for us it's a difficult thing to do. Because that's simple. This is governance. Governance we can fix. Market dynamics are more complex. Governance can be fixed. So this is an easy case for. And of course, if a company sees that spectrum is much more harmonized, licenses are very long or possibly infinite duration, then, they can discuss what is the right size when it comes to, for instance, the mobile market. Level playing field in terms of authorizing or a company. For cloud companies, there's basically no authorization. They settle somewhere in Europe, and then they offer the service. In the telecom world, we have seen the system of 100 years ago. They have to go to a door, knock, knock. Can I be there? And somebody gives the permission to be there with the 300 rules. It's high time, we speak about convergence, that we have a level play field. Again, then, the market consolidates, decides what are the right alliances. But these are things which are in the category, for me, of red tapes or governance things which we can fix.
You've opened many doors here. Are you in a hurry to leave? Because we've already spoken about spectrum, level playing field. You're getting no. I like that, but we'll get back to this. But before that, I wanted to hear from Svetlina about concentration, the need to support consolidation, the need to maybe have fewer operators at the European level, bigger operators, stronger operators, maybe some would say.
Well. And that's another favorite of mine questions. I think Mr. Viola already hinted upon the difference between the European
many things already,
and the US market. So I would try to offer a bit of a summary. So of course there are a lot of advantages when we speak about market consolidation. So here we speak about more financial resources and the possibility to invest exactly in the next generation infrastructure like the 5G, fiber optics, or the advanced IoT technologies. So larger companies would definitely have that capability in terms of the filling in the funding and investment gap that we have at the moment. I mean, as simple as it was pointed out, probably in Draghi's report for a different sector, is like consolidation leads to economies of scale. This is simple economy. However, there are a lot of disadvantages when we look at the consolidation and the specifics of the EU market. So the fewer players, this means that there is a possibility of the creating monopolistic conditions, which of course would lead to a lot of difficulties for the EU market. When I say the EU market, I mean the consumers and the companies who are part of this market. So first of all, the consumers may have less choice in terms of the products and the services they are offered. Of course, this would affect the price, and this might lead to significant increase in the prices of services, which is something which we as regulators should not allow. Consolidations would definitely result in potential job cuts and restructuring in the telecom sector, which has the social aspects that we should not be ignoring, especially in the economic stagnation we are currently being part of in the EU. Another disadvantage would be the higher barriers to entry. So basically, it's going to be very difficult for new market players to enter. And I'm afraid that this might lead to a slowdown in the rate of innovation. So even though we understand that the consolidation is going to give more financial power, I believe that the disadvantages, both for the companies and for the consumers, are more. So we should be very careful when we're speaking or taking steps in that direction, simply because the shape and the form of the EU telecom market is quite different compared to some others that exist.
Juan, how do we avoid like those side effects that the MEP is describing here?
Yeah.
Higher prices, less choices, less innovation, maybe.
Yes, let me, Matthew, go first to the first question about how needed is consolidation or not, because there is something very important from an industry perspective. What we need is a market well functioning. And it is the market that has to take us to what is that market structure that fosters investment and fosters competition. Both come together. But what we have today is a market structure that has been not a consequence of market-driven forces. It has been a consequence of intervention from both ex post and ex ante regulation in Europe.
But that brought benefits too, right?
Benefits? Who?
Low prices in Europe.
That's all. Okay.
That's not nothing, is it?
Well, if we
but low prices when we talk for the European competitiveness and consumer welfare, it's also important.
I think it's very little. I think that's a very poor outcome. Okay. It's a poor outcome today, even if we are at the end of this time, but it's an extremely poor outcome for the future.
For the long term.
For the long term and for the medium term. If we just, well, you can see we have, as you very well know, we are very, very present in Latin America. Prices are much lower. I hope we are not in 5-year times in the situation where we are in Latin America today. And that is the trend we are taking. And their prices are much lower. This means that there is a welfare for citizens better in digital terms there than here or in the US? Not definitely. So if we have a purpose, and we can say this purpose is meeting those targets that were set up for the year 2030, we need to see what is the size of the challenge we have in front of us. If this is existential for the European digital society, and I think it is, once we see the size of the challenge, we need to see what is the size of the capabilities those players that are responsible for delivering the targets have. If we see this is the size of the capability and this is the size of the challenge, we need to see what do we do to take these capabilities to a point where we can be very demanding with those market players to say, now you're in a situation where you can meet the challenge. And the challenge means capacity, innovation, and competition. And competition means having the fair prices. I want to have great value for European citizens in digital terms. And great value means fair prices for that value. This is as low as possible? No, we can have very poor value and then very low prices. But if this is what drives, and I come back now to the drug report, if this is what drives those capabilities, productivity, and productivity is the only lever for competitiveness, where do we want to be? In that region that grows comparable to other global regions? Or no, in this place where we are enjoying low prices for a few years and then seeing the general consumer welfare and citizen welfare at the lowest place. I think we have to solve this question. We cannot bet for everything. And having said this about those side effects you were referring to, I don't want to avoid this question. Should we give for granted that seeing more pro-investment market structures driven by the market, not designed by anyone, it will be as bad as the situation we have today? It will be having a number of players designed from wherever, in Verlemont, in the capitals, or wherever. It has been the market that wants to have to drive. Please, we need to remember what is Article 3 of the Treaty of the European Union. And we are based on a market economy, and social welfare comes from market economy working correctly, and we have the authorities to monitor if it is working correctly or not. But why, if there is a pro-investment market structure, we are going to see monopolistic attitudes? I don't see it everywhere. Do other regions of the world where the number of players is much smaller, innovation investment is much higher, prices can be even higher? Do they have monopolistic structures? Do they not invest? Do they not compete among themselves? Well, I don't see that. But if that could happen, of course, we need to have strong authorities to monitor if there is an abuse of dominant position happening, for sure. But those side effects, given for granted as if it was an automatic consequence of market structure changes, I cannot accept it, because that's not real at all in market behaviors.
We've got a question from the audience about whether Draghi's report, what would be the impact of Draghi's report on spectrum policy. So we're talking about spectrum policy. Just before, recently at the panel, you said that 5G was, I quote, a disaster, but because also partly because of 5G spectrum allocation. That's a shame that the Hungarian ambassador couldn't make it tonight, because that's usually a no-go for member countries. And at the same time, you in the white paper, Enrico Lettamario Draghi, make bold suggestions about how to reform the spectrum. How are we going to unlock that disagreement?
Well, we failed 3 times to reform the spectrum. Maybe the 4th time is the right one. I think it needs a lot of political prioritizing, that this is important, and now it's there. Now it's there, and this is important. It needs to have a serious discussion with the capital at senior level, not, those that, of course, regulate, because they would say, why I should not do that? I'm much better than the people. And by the way, a good spectrum reform doesn't mean that the Commission should grab power here or there, or the country should not have, a fair distribution of the wealth of spectrum. Not an exaggerated one, because this traps, again, the economy. But, clearly, it's a scarce resource that belongs to us. It should be remunerated fairly. So all of this is possible, and we have to look now at what has been done with the much more modern instruments that we have. The DSA, the DMI, the IAC, they have all this 2-layer approach to regulation. and see whether in the telecom world, this is, by the way, not my words, it's the words of Mr. Letta in his report, this two-layer approach might work. Because today, the whole telecom governance, the whole telecom regulation, it's a bit outdated when you see the rest of the things we have done, I mean, and how we treat things. So I think this time is a concrete possibility. We land somewhere with a good spectrum reform.
Do you hear that? Are you happy that we may get a spectrum reform at some point? Is that something in an ideal world? What would you like? Because like spectrum is a big cost for operators, a bigger cost even in certain countries. So what would you like from policymakers on this?
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear this, of course. I'm very happy to hear that the spectrum has to be one of those inputs that are critical for the mobile connectivity to happen. So if there is a big value in having the best mobile connectivity, of having 5G standalone, I think you were referring to 5G standalone when you said about the situation of 5G in Europe. It is very different than basic 5G. So if this is critical for European society, we need to put this asset in the hands of those who are going to roll out networks, not considering what is going to be the revenue for the public treasuries, but which is the value of this service to develop networks. So if what we are speaking about is about the price of licenses, of a spectrum, it's about the length of these concessions of rights, and it's about harmonizing conditions all through Europe, we are very happy about this. There is a more difficult conversation. This is the centralization of the spectrum management. Well, probably we have to go first to step one, and this is harmonization, and with a high level, high understanding of what is the best harmonization possible, we can probably live there.
Spectrum comes at a cost, as we discussed, but also Draghi mentioned, and I quote here, the costly proliferation of different obligations for EU telecom operators due to the highly fragmented market, and which he said also was an obstacle for healthy telecom industry. Svetlina, do we have too many rules falling upon telecom operators in Europe? Or too many different rules from one EU country to another, maybe?
Well, I guess the sentence, do we have too many rules when it comes to, and you can add any sector at this stage. So it would be true. So yes, the bureaucracy is quite heavy, and we do acknowledge that at the EU institutions. And it is especially quite heavy when it comes to the proper investment of the available funds we have. Because if we're honest, we are speaking about investments, financing gaps, but there are a lot of instruments, financial instruments, which are quite rich in terms of funds. And bureaucracy sometimes does slow the process of the investment, so it has the best value added for the economy in all shape and form. But you've raised one very important aspect here. First of all, at EU level, we do have many rules. But then the second problem, which is probably at the same level as the first one, is the lack of coordination among member states. We see that quite often, not only in the telecom and digital sector. So Draghi has also put a strong emphasis on that when it comes to coordination among member states. First of all, sometimes the rules are, of course, when they're transposed, they're changed to fit into the specific national legislation. But also another aspect, especially when we're speaking about technology, innovation, infrastructure, is the speed that each one of the member states implements the specific regulations. So I would say that this would be one of the top priorities when it comes to the new rules that are upcoming. Of course, we're going to have easing in terms of bureaucracy, not only about the funding instruments, but of course about simplifying the rules so we can ensure that competitiveness, which is not going to be at the expense of the consumers. So we're not going to support higher prices. So this is our biggest challenge. But the coordination among member states is at the same importance, because if we're just implementing rules at the EU level that 2 or 3 countries can put into work much faster than the others, then we're not moving towards a properly working and competitively functioning single market.
Juan, so what I think Alessandro referred earlier to unnecessary rules, maybe some talk about outdated rules. Which are they? What are they?
Well, we could be discussing the whole afternoon about this. I think we have already spoken about merger control. That's not unnecessary. That is very necessary, but well focused to the final purpose. But then we have ex-ante regulation and vertical regulation to our industries. Do we need a specific e-privacy regulation? No, or with the...
Well, this one is not happening.
No, we have. No, Matthew. We have today an e-privacy directive which has not been repealed. What is the outcome? We don't have time to discuss it, but it's very important. Mm-hmm. It's very important in terms of innovation where it happens. So, do we need a specific consumer protection regulation? Maybe in some aspects, but we need 27 different consumer protection regulations in Europe. We need so different rules for the rollout of networks at a state, regional, and municipal level in 27 member states? No, definitely no. All this means having difficulties, having first a difficulty to roll out networks and to provide services, both. As important as this, such difficulty to innovate when it comes to opening new services, as it happens, we're making such an effort to transform, to software our networks in a way we can open them to developers through APIs, to developers of digital services on the top of connectivity, and then we find these different interpretations of privacy regulations in Europe and the e-privacy directive as a whole. So there are lots of regulations that should be under a close analysis if they are needed or not after these years in place. And this is such an important exercise to be done.
Roberto, another question from the audience, if I can. Yeah, there's been a lot of talks about strategic autonomy de-risking, specifically from China. How will you do this moving forward? I'm asking you this because, interestingly, the 5G toolbox is sometimes identified as one of these unbudgeted law that are holding back, the telecom operators' investment capacity.
Look. I heard in the introduction, Alessandro spoke about the daughter using the network, connect a car using the network. Would you sit on a plane which is unsecure? Would you do that? So I think foremost, if these are services essential for our economy and for our society, they have to be secure. Without if, but, or what. So this is the basic rule for whatever we do in society. So I think on this there cannot be a compromise. So that's the meaning of the toolbox, to work together with the member states to identify where there are security risks and try together to solve the problems. I mean, but we cannot simply put it in the drawer saying this is a problem that does not exist. So on this, we should be clear, and also because everybody else in the world, one way or another, is looking at this with their own lenses. So it would be very strange that we in Europe, we neglect this issue.
So there are maybe rules that we can get rid of, but there are also maybe new rules. That's, I think, what was in the white paper, and you referred to it before, to get closer to a level playing field with the tech industry, for instance. The Commission keep talking about the cloudification of networks, this convergence between telecom and cloud providers. Is that something that you are considering now, extending the scope of the telecom regulations to these new players? Is that the right way forward?
Well, there are two possibilities. I mean, you regulate more everybody, or you regulate less everybody. I mean, but in any case, we need to go to more a level playing field when it comes to this. We have started, for instance, by introducing a portability obligation on cloud providers. We would like to see more of the telecom regulators working in looking also at the cloud market. So becoming data, many of them are already becoming like this. So the convergence between the telecom and cloud market is necessary. And also, as I was saying before, a company, wherever is established in Europe, a telecom company, is in Belgium, is in the Netherlands, is in Spain, should offer the service to all of Europe. I mean, this should be the default. Then it's the operators themselves that don't want that, because they like to maintain differentiated prices. That's why in the White Book we say, okay, let's do it for the networks and keep, let's say, some differentiation in local markets. The problem of the telecom sector is that overall it's a relatively litigious sector, and also has this idea of regulation on demand. Do the rules that exactly fit my situation. And so the whole journey of changing the rules will be not a simple one. And the White Book is intentionally going by stages and trying to kind of stabilize what it can be stabilized. So we are still far from the idea of a single market in telecom. But at least there are obvious steps that can be taken.
I'm afraid we're about to wrap up, but I'd like to hear from each of you one last time. Svetlina, so what would you like to see the Commission do when it gets to work after the hearings? What do you think the Commission should prioritize when it comes to telecoms?
Well, I think we've touched upon many topics, so I'm not going to repeat what was said already, but I would just emphasize probably on three last aspects, which are quite key, and we haven't discussed them fully. So we need to make sure that the access and the sharing of data is quite important in the way it's done. And the Data Act, for instance, in the last mandate of the Parliament, was one of the examples where concrete measures were taken to ensure that the sharing of data across all market players is made in a fair and competitive way. So data was assigned the proper economic value. It was part of the real economy. This is important, sharing and access to data. Of course, it has the aspect of the consumer protection, privacy, security, and I'm not going to touch much upon the cybersecurity. This is the second point I wanted to raise at the end, because Mr. Viola have already spoken quite enough about that, and this is a topic which is always going to stay with us. But the third point here is we cannot be speaking about cybersecurity, security or protection if we don't pay enough attention on the digital skills. And this is something key, something important. So we need to focus, we need to invest more in the digital skills. We need to support the development of digital skills across the EU among the different age groups. Because anything else as an effort would not lead to a result if we don't have educated consumers who know their rights and who know how to protect themselves.
Thank you very much, Svetlina. Juan, what would you like to see in this potential future Digital Networks Act?
Well, I would like to see, well, if I, as we have 1 minute, if I had to choose,
you need to give some time to Roberto, who likes to speak a lot too.
Okay. I'll be. If I had to identify only 3 points, I would say first, think about what is the way to allow the market to reach pro-investment and pro-innovation market structures. Second, review the current ex-ante regulation to find if there are many pieces in this regulation that are not fit for the purpose we are now looking to. And third, make sure that in the internet value chain, the relationship among all different segments in the internet value chain is a balanced relationship. That relationship has to be built on commercial agreements and on market partnership relationships, but at the same time, as in any market, there is a problem that is not solved, we need to know who is that authority that can solve that disputes in a very short period of time and very, very much focus on the targets we are willing to meet.
Roberto, so what's next now?
Well, I'm not going to give any spoiler, as you imagine.
We like spoilers. Would you present a summary of the white paper?
We will.
Okay. Can we have a look maybe at the poll? The question was, what is the most critical factor for improving investment in connectivity in Europe? And without giving any spoiler, maybe you can tell me if that's consistent. If only we can see the poll behind. Perfect. Can you read it? I see open competition, I see public-private partnership, I see net neutrality, I see fair share popping up here, competition, scale, consolidation. Is that consistent? No big surprises here?
The cloud of word is the right one. For instance, net neutrality, I don't know whether they voted, that they really like it, or they want some change. So the words are spot on.
It's not too controversial, okay.
And since I'm not giving any spoiler, it's okay like this,
Okay, fair enough. Well, thank you so much for your time. We can thank all of the panelists for a fascinating discussion indeed. Many more to come, I guess. Thank you for joining us in the room. Online, and thank you to our partner Connect Europe for making this event possible. We'd love to hear your feedback, so feel free to email us about the event at live@politico.eu. And finally, you can check our Politico events website for the latest lineup of all of our events happening this year. Next week, there is the Competitive Europe Week, so we may see you there. Thank you very much. And let's take the conversation now downstairs with a drink, if you want. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We are united in diversity. We are very heterogeneous in our opinion.
If we do not renew our partnerships with the rest of the world, Europe will not be relevant.
We can make it if we are together as Europeans.
Do you genuinely believe that countries will manage to reach these very ambitious targets?
That don't make them go away. I need a crowd of people, but I can't face them day to day.